let's break out and let's hit this second slide here. And let's begin with a little bit of view, right? So in Bereshith, Genesis, chapter 6, there's a narrative that has been created that has an enduring controversy that's been lasting for thousands of years now. And there are two possible positions. One, the view which states that the Ben Elohim, or the Beni Elohim, the sons of God, as it's interpreted in English, came from the godly line of Seth. Or two, the other position is that the sons of God were in fact the fallen angels or the fallen watchers. Now, the term watcher is used in Daniel to describe these angels. The discussion of the fallen watchers takes place in the book of Jude that quotes from the book of Enoch expressly, and also 2 Peter, who references the fallen angels, and also Paul, who talks about it in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, when he's talking about a woman covering her head in church, and he says something to the effect that you need to cover your hair because of the angels. Now, why would Paul say something like this if he wasn't talking about the hair of a woman tempting angels, tempting the watchers? All right, let's jump in here and let's look at this passage, Genesis or Bereshith, chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. Now, these are the passages we're going to be discussing tonight, and we're going to be digging in with the microscope, and we're going to be trying to pull out the marrow out of this passage to see what we can find. So how does it read? Let's see. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw at the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them women all which they chose. And Yahweh said, my Ruach shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And I'm going to talk about that for a second. There were Nephilim in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of Elohim came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, the same became warriors and tyrants, which were of ancient times, men of infamy. Okay. Before we get any farther into the passage on the giants, let me talk about man's days shall be 120 years. I don't know why the passage doesn't say man's years, Shanaim, will be 120 years. I mean, why doesn't it say man's years shall be 120 years? Instead, it says man's days, Yomim, shall be 120 years, Shanaim. Why? Well, there's a reason why, and it has to do with the fact that oftentimes in Scripture, you have this conflation of time. That is to say, in Ezekiel 4:5, there's a discussion that says, lie on your side for 390 days, each day equal to a year. And we have this concept also found in the book of Devarim or Deuteronomy, where a day is equal to a year. But in the book of Jubilees, we find out that a week is equal to a week of years. That is to say, when you see the word week in the book Yovelim or Jubilees, it means 7 years. So when it says that Adam and Hua, or Adam and Eve, were in the garden for exactly 7 weeks, that's 7 weeks of years. They were in the garden for 49 years. Now, in this case, in this particular passage, I think there's a macro explanation for Genesis 6:3, and you might want to, highlight this in your scripture. This is an important scripture. And it is this, that man's days, all of man's days on earth shall be 120 years. Now, he's talking about mankind here, not just a man, and he's not talking about a lifespan of a man. He's talking about the age of man. That is to say, the age of man in its fallen condition. If he means 120 Jubilee years, suddenly we're discussing 120 times 50 years, which gives us 6,000 years. Man's days shall be 6,000 years. Man's days shall be 120 Jubilee years. And this factoring of the Jubilee years over 120 Jubilee years to give us 6,000 is totally consistent with the menorah telling us that 6 days you shall work and the seventh day you shall rest, each day equaling 1,000 years, as Kepa or Peter says about Yah. To Yah, each day is of 1,000 years. And so if we have 6 days of work and then the seventh day is a day of rest, that day of rest is described in the book of Kiseon as the millennial reign, the millennial reign. That's 1,000 years of living under Mashiach. And so the reign of man running abundantly on earth, trying to figure out if he's coming or going, goes for 6,000 years, and then Mashiach comes. If you apply that formula, you can see also that the Mashiach came in his first advent, as described in Genesis 1:1, where the fourth word is the Aleph Tav. Mashiach saying, I am the Aleph Tav in the book of Revelation. He appears at the end of the fourth day, or the end of the 80th Jubilee, and will appear again at the end of the 120th Jubilee. Now, it's just up to us to find out which year that is. It's an unknown sum. But we're going to talk now about this passage here. So the two operative passages that I think are really critical is, of course, Genesis 6:2, that the sons of Elohiym saw at the daughters of men, and then, of course, 6:4. All right. Let's take a look at Bereshith 6:2. All right. Now, here we have a passage that in the Hebrew reads, Vayira ubeni Elohim et benot ha'adam tovot ana velachak yichochu lechem nashim kol asher bakaru. And what that's telling us is that the sons of Elohim, the Beni Elohim, saw Ra'ah at the daughters of men. Now here the word, usually in the Hebrew, we see that the daughter is described as Bat, B-A-T-H, Bat. But in this case, it doesn't say that. It says Benot, Benot, which is an interesting construction because the idea that Ben, or children, with this feminine plural at the end, Benot, Benot. The daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them women, all of which they chose. All right. So the next slide, then the question is then, who are the Beni Elohim? This is the big question. Well, we're going to take a look and we're going to see. One answer is they're the sons of Seth. The other answer is there's something different.